I'm Travis Brown, founder and CEO of Mojo Up Marketing and Media. And this is my podcast where I talk to the most successful Black and brown business executives who've broken through the barriers of today's business culture. Welcome to Mojo Up Live. I'm Travis Brown, and today we have another amazing guest. Today I got Marshawn Wolley with me, he's a Black executive, a business owner, DEI and policy influencer, and I'm super excited to hear how he's strategically navigating today's business environment. Welcome to the show, my man.
Thanks for having me. I'm so glad to be here.
Now, out of the gate, my first question is how does one navigate to get involved in policy making in today's environment?
Yeah, so it is an interesting environment because you have to operate both at a blue county where you got Democrats basically dominating the county, and then you have a red state where there's super majorities in both chambers that are, Republican oriented and really more rural and conservative oriented. And so it's about language. It's about understanding what you're trying to achieve and staying focused on the goal, but then also realizing that you're fighting for somebody. And so really when you get an opportunity to listen to the community, we like to make sure that we're doing that so that we're aligned with the community's interests and being able to translate that interest into positive public policy, either in a blue county or a red state.
We're definitely going to unpack that in your business realm and how it is today and how you're making such a major impact. But I want to back it up a little bit and talk about, where you're from. What was the path to get to where you are today?
Yeah, so I grew up here. I was actually born Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. My parents were Marines. I've been here since I was 3, went to college here. And I think I got spoiled in my very first job. I was a mayor's neighborhood liaison working under the Peterson administration on crime prevention and quality of life issues. It was an amazing opportunity. It was my first job really out of grad school. And I served as an appointed official and really got a chance to learn the county and to learn how government works. And I think that's where I got an interest in policy and the mechanics of things. Mm-hmm. It was an election. And so because it was an election, I had to move on. And Deborah Oates with Nubian Construction Group, she reached out. She was like, hey, I have this job. I don't really have a job description, but I think you could figure it out. And so that's really where I learned about minority and women-owned businesses. And so that was the convention center expansion and figuring out how to it was a $275 million, roughly $300 million project occurring during the Great Recession. How do you advocate for minority, specifically Black businesses, to even get them from subcontractor to prime? We got 30% as far as the goals. So the goals were 15% minority, 5% women. We ended up doing 20 and 10. And that mattered to me because there was an excess amount of dollars going to the community at a critical time. Tony Mason, another person that's very important in my development, came to me with the Super Bowl host committee and ended up on the Super Bowl host committee where we weren't building a project, but we were trying to figure out how to create an experience, a world-class experience for the game. And so I was responsible for community outreach and then the Minority Women Business Program. And so same kind of beast, but just a little bit different. We ended up doing working with more businesses and spending more as a host committee than any other host committee in the previous 5 years. Did some work at Visit Indy, learned a little bit about the city, and then did some lecturing. So I had multiple stops. I was a professor of public affairs, where again, I get back to the policy piece, but then I also taught courses on managing workforce diversity. I got my CDE certification, so Certified Diversity Executive certification at that time. And throughout each of the positions, I always felt like I could do more. And so I've just finally got to a point where I decided that if I'm going to do more, then I should make it work for me. Mm-hmm. So stepped out and haven't really looked back. Mm-hmm. Don't plan on looking back.
Yeah, it's funny when I see people's journey to entrepreneurship, right?
Yeah.
And that development. And then there's an epiphany one day going, whether I can do it better, more efficient, it can be my vision, not somebody else's. Now that you're kind of in that entrepreneurial seat, how do you create this vision for where your company's going, what you want to impact, where your time goes? What does that look like now?
Yeah, so that's actually a really good question because we have Black Onyx Management, which is a benefit corporation, which means that within my business model, or really my corporate charter, I said we're going to empower Black and marginalized communities. I had some time before I jumped into the entrepreneurship position to really think about the market, particularly the DEI market, where I observed really an opportunity to move from training really more to management. So really the projects that we do that I think are new in this particular moment when we're thinking about where I like to spend our time is managing for DEI outcomes. So whether it's, developing Equity 1821, which is a business loan fund, or supporting a Black CDFI, Mount Zion Indianapolis Credit Union, and the work that they're doing, or supporting the Urban League's Entrepreneurship Center, or helping, move the African American Coalition's Black agenda forward. These are projects where we're not just putting people in a room and training them, we're managing and trying to get some outcomes. And so that's what I like to do. I like to manage towards outcomes.
Well, I think it's interesting because you laid out several different organizations, some that I'm very familiar with and some that I'm not. And in this journey to really put Black and brown businesses on the map, if you will, giving them opportunities, sometimes it feels like an uphill battle.
Yeah.
It's like people are having the conversations now, but are they meaning it, right? Yeah. What do you feel like in the marketplace right now that it's going to take to really get this supplier diversity thing really happening?
Yeah, so one of the projects that we advise on, again, managing towards outcomes, is the Business Equity for Indy initiative. Really excited about that because you have two institutions, the Indy Chamber, well, three, the Indianapolis Urban League, the Indy Chamber, and the Central Indiana Corporate Partnership coming together to really create almost like a joint venture to advance business equity issues, including procurement. And so I know Stacia Murphy's done an exceptional job of leading on the BEI procurement roundtable, where they're pulling corporations together in a very intentional way. And I think what's interesting about this moment is you've got peer groups and you've got some significant investment even at the personnel level, like this is their job. They wake up, this is their job, this is what they're focused on. Coming out of some key institutions that make this moment a little bit different. I do think that when you're looking at our business formation numbers, so we're 55th out of 85 metros in business formation. The state is 26 out of 40 in business formation. We also face a 40% closure rate, and that's before COVID. We have some significant headwinds, and one of the things I'm most excited about talking about are two things. Industry selection, getting us in better industries that are more profitable, but then also getting us to leverage the financial institutions. So we're standing up Equity 1821. I have a goal of $5.2 billion in economic impact, about 17,000 jobs. What has to happen is there has to be a system. There has to be a system of different institutions involved. Equity 1821 is a part of it. You've got BEI, but then you have others that are, thinking about in different ways, how can we be more intentional?
Do you think that in today's environment, like we're seeing the rapid growth, and I say rapid growth, with an asterisk, but are we seeing this growth? Because every time you hear people talk about it, it's like, well, post George Floyd.
Yeah.
And it, sometimes it rubs me the wrong way because I'm like this shit wasn't happening before this, right? Why do you think that had such a significant impact? And what else is really underneath all of this that's kind of giving us this growth?
So I actually really appreciate that you brought that up. The African American Coalition actually had not only an agenda, but a debate between mayoral candidates in 2019, about the set of issues that were involved in the George Floyd murder. So Indianapolis had actually already started. At least Black leaders had a set of policies that they wanted to see. They had a consensus, and they had already started the conversations of agenda setting inside of municipal government. And so I think Indianapolis was well positioned because we had Black leaders in the community, from, you know, the Concerned Clergy to Jack and Jill to the Deltas, the Greek organization. They had already had.
Hey, watch yourself now.
I know, I can't say all.
Dropping a couple of them. Watch yourself.
I mess up. I got to do all 9, you know. But they had a plan. There was already a plan. And so when we got to George Floyd, part of what the debate was we need movement on the stuff we said 3 years ago. And that, I think, was the difference. We weren't trying to figure out what we needed to do at that moment. We already knew what we wanted to do. It was, okay, we're serious. This is the reason why.
Is the movement real? Is it a fad? And does it matter?
So one of the things,
because sometimes right now it feels like a lot of people are going through the motions to check some boxes.
Yeah.
And I always say to people, like, we'll take checkbox money right now, right? As a company, right? Okay. Because we still feel like we can still do great work, put on, do things, grow business, and prove who we are and what we do.
Right.
But does that matter?
So I'll go back to BEI. So in talking to BEI, one of the things I brought up was we've been through these iterations where, and you can go back and look at the recorder where, you know, the business community all of a sudden rediscovered that the Black community was having challenges that maybe they could have some part in developing, and over time there'd be a ramp up and then things would go away. On some levels, I think the short answer to your question is it doesn't matter as long as Black people are developing their own agendas and capacity to support ourselves. And so that's really what I'm interested in and excited about, developing the infrastructure for our own capacity to move ourselves forward. I don't want to wait on anybody. I don't want to, you know, rely on the largesse or philanthropy of someone's attention on us. And so when I think about the work that Black Onyx Management is doing, setting up a policy agenda is creating infrastructure. Setting up Equity 1821 is infrastructure. We have a program called India Accomplishment, where we specifically say allies make statements, accomplices take action. And so we advance the idea of being an accomplice. And so that's our message to corporations and organizations that are outside of the Black community but engage. But internally, I like to focus on what the Black community can do for itself.
Well, I think it's interesting you said what the Black community can do for itself. You know, I do think, you know, often, and I'm saying, speaking from a business owner, it's like, all right, who can help? Where are the resources? And I feel like I'm doing that after I'm going, like, we built our company, we've taken care of all of our business, we got our books together, we got our legal together, we've done everything that we can do, you know, on our own. And now, if you want to grow and scale, it is tapping into the corporate and supplier diversity and understanding the landscape of all of that, you know. But I do think it's important that, like, we do have to own what we can do and what our responsibilities are to be excellent, to be great, and then ask for what it takes to go to the next level.
Yeah, I think there's some advocacy involved in that. Like when we're asking businesses to be an accomplice, we're very specific. Like, we went to the Black community and we talked to the community. We had focus groups. We did a full statistically significant survey. So I'm trained as an economist. So we did a statistically significant survey to understand what do we want as a community, and we looked at workplace, workforce, marketplace, and community. And as far as the marketplace, yeah, we need Mojo to be a prime on stuff. We need Black Onyx to be a prime. In fact,
100%.
Black Onyx Management, actually, we don't subcontract. We'll only go in on projects as a prime. But to grow, to get to that next stage and to scale, then yeah, you got to have that advocacy and that ability to engage with other structures.
And the challenge, I think, I was talking to somebody before you, and we're talking about how often we're not the prime, right? So the way that people meet their supplier diversity needs, their MBE stuff, is like, hey, they're prime, I'm going to subcontract out, right? And there's these decisions that are being made. It kind of pacifies everything, you know. How did you make the strategic decision to say we're not going to be a contractor?
Yeah. So part of if you look at the city's disparity study, it's like 600 pages or whatever. But I spent, that's just my world. So I looked at it and I read the interviews way in the back, And one comment stood out to me. Your balance sheet could look great, but your cash flow statement is what's killing you because you're not getting paid.
Yeah.
And for me, I said, okay, if I can't engage, if you don't see my value in going into a joint venture with me on a project, then I don't think I need to be a subcontractor for you. Now, I do think to the point of scaling over time, yeah, you might decide to be a subcontractor. But if you do that, it's not gonna be because you got a random email from somebody that there was a quote. It's gonna be because you have a relationship with them and that you know them, they know you, and they understand the value that you bring to the table. So, I feel like at where we are right now, it's very important for us to take on projects where we're getting the real experience that we need, the full experience, and that's a strategic decision. You know, with strategy, you reevaluate over periodically. But
no, I love the intentionality behind it. You know, and we're looking at things right now and trying to make decisions of what we're willing to do, how we're willing to do it. In the same way, you know, the state's marketing stuff is coming up in next year in 23, and so now we're having that same conversation. Like, you know, we could go at it as this, but now we're large enough. Now we have the breadth of work and going. You know, if you're willing to put us on as a subcontractor, then you should be considering us as prime, right? And sometimes you have to be willing to take that. So I love that you've done that.
Well, and the other thing I'll add, like, here's the other thing. You get these emails from these random companies that say, hey, would you be willing to be a pass-through? No, I'm not interested in being a pass-through. That's disrespectful. I did all this work to put together a team and do all this work to have capacity and capability, and now you're going to approach me. So I just sent an email I got one of those yesterday, and I enjoy, kicking back, and I save them. I save them too because. I don't know I'm doing them yet, but I just keep
receipts,
them.
Right?
Those are receipts.
Hey, keep receipts.
Those are receipts. Like, don't come at me like that. You know.
I love that. So let me ask you this about policy. So talk to me a little bit, and anybody's listening to this, because I don't know that we all inherently understand the work that it takes to get policy that matters to our business, right? Yeah. So talk to me about like the process you're going through to get policy and what kind of policy and how does that really make an impact?
Yeah, so we developed an agenda in 2018. It had a number of deliverables, and so we've created a website, ndblackagendas.org, that folks can go see the receipts. We said we were going to do X. This is where you can see that X was accomplished, and so it's wrapping up any loose ends there. And then now we're in the phase of trying to understand, what do we want to see? What is the vision? So that involves talking to, same process, one-on-ones with key thought leaders from a variety of perspectives, either, from folks, single parents to reentry to grandmothers. In fact, the idea of a Black-led CDFI came from a grandmother who was at a community meeting who said, we need a community development financial institution. Lo and behold, it's actual federal designation. I don't think she knew that. But, so it's listening and then understanding how to take what you're hearing and translate it into a program or an idea that legislators can react to. After you have your set of ideas, there's some socialization that has to occur. When we first came out with the Black Agenda, folks said, oh, well, you haven't even talked to 10,000 Black people. And we pointed out, well, you all never talk to 10,000 anybody whenever you're making a vote at a city county council. What you do is you look at the set of ideas, you follow the research, and you get a sense of, if this makes sense. And so we're going through that. The challenge with economic development is it's really more about, it's going to be tax code, which is going to really be at the state. The city can do a few things. It's the creation of programs, and then it's also standing up institutions that we have to do ourselves. And so it's a combination of different factors, but being engaged, understanding, what Black organizations are getting, the bonding authority to do their projects, becomes something that I pay attention to when I'm looking at city county council meetings.
When you see the work that you're doing, but you also see it from a perspective that you get to come face to face with the real behind the scenes challenge of this happening.
Yeah.
How do you deal with some of the discouragement when you're seeing what people are saying and doing and how they're reacting?
Yeah.
How do you deal with that discouragement?
Yeah. So I was, it's funny. So I was just talking to a CEO of another nonprofit of the board I serve on. And I was talking about how I'm in the market for new haters. I need new haters because, and I was joking with that. I was saying I want powerful, strong, influential haters, because that means you're doing something, With the discouragement piece, one of the things I've appreciated is I have people that support the vision, even if they don't fully see everything and fully understand everything. I think they know me well enough to know that I'm trying to do the right thing. And so I have those folks that are on the team. But then also, that's just part of life. That's just, I told you my parents were Marines. And one of the things they said was, if I'm not yelling at you, it's because I don't care. And so getting that kind of feedback is actually helpful because it means they're paying attention. And sometimes it means that you can do things. You can actually be responsive and change what you're doing. So I, count it all joy.
We're Facebook friends, and so over time I've seen you post about lessons you're teaching your son.
Yeah.
And fatherhood. So what are you taking from all of this stuff, and how has that transformed how you're a father to your son?
So it's fun. It's being, especially since there's this entrepreneurship piece. One of the companies I have is called Marshawn Alexander, and so Alexander's my son's name, and it's really just a company where we talk about stocks, and he likes Kroger and Walmart, and because that's where he goes or whatever. So, or Disney, and so just having an opportunity to talk about legacy with him now. We talk about philanthropy. We talk about, and I have to balance this. So I say, son, we have these businesses and you got to be responsible. You'll have these businesses one day if you want, because I also have to create the space for him to say, I want to be a cook or I want to follow my own vision. But he goes with me everywhere. So if we're going to a community meeting or a business meeting, he goes with me, especially during the week. During the weekends, I really try to keep that just for him. So if something's happening on the weekends, I may sponsor an event, but I don't go to the event because that's his time. So he has to. I have to make sure he has his time. But yeah, it's fun, and it's been great to be able to bring him into that work.
What I love about, so I grew up, and my dad and mom both worked in the factory.
Yeah.
And a lot of my aunts and uncles worked in the factory, and hardworking, did amazing stuff, awesome, work ethic, and I learned that. But they never were in these type of environments. They were never in the boardroom. They were never in the conference room, in those professional environments. And so my kids are different. I have 3. I have a big one, 2 little ones, and so I've been able to expose them to a different set of viewpoints, right? Not that the factory working life was wrong, because that's what my parents knew and that's what they were able to do. But I'm able to show them something different.
Yeah.
Right? What do you hope your son sees that's different than what you were able to see as a son of Marine parents?
Yeah, so my parents, they did a good job of modeling community service. And so I think that's something that I have 2 other brothers. One's a commander of IMPD, North District, and the other one's assistant principal in Brownsburg. Very proud of them, leaders in their own rights. So I think we've got community service and leadership from my parents. I think Alexander is going to see those things as well as the mechanics of business. He sees daddy working a lot. And so I think he knows that that's something that he's supposed to do. I hope he goes to Morehouse. Because I want him to have an appreciation for Black institutions. So we talk about that. We talk about Black history a lot. My thing is he's going to get to a point that is beyond me, and I want him to have the ability and the courage to explore it. So it's possible he might look at my stuff and the companies and say, Daddy, I actually can go be an investment banker at Wall Street, and I can do something fundamentally different because of what I prepared for him now. And so I'm actually more excited about that. Like what is going to be possible for him because of what's happening now.
And Indiana, as you said earlier, red state, blue Marion County, is this the place to live, to be with these situations? And I know this is touchy for you, but
yeah. I think about that. I think about that a lot. And I think about what I want my son to see. There are places in the country that I've thought about going to just because I want to make sure my son sees affluent Black people, to just be perfectly honest with you. But I also appreciate like what is here, the connectivity to a community, the relationships and the social capital that he can have here. So I don't know if Indianapolis is where I'll be for the rest of my life. I'm pretty sure it won't be, but it'll be a part of it. And I think that it's a great place to be, particularly if you're connected. I think that one of the things I'm looking forward to seeing develop is, and I think we're getting there, is Black talented young professionals that can actually get here and stay here. And I think I talked about business formation. I almost feel like my company exists to allow Black talented people who went to all these different schools and have to go to all these other institutions and use their talents to advance other people. I think my company exists for them to come someplace where they don't have to translate whatever it is they're thinking and make it support a Black institution that's trying to support the Black community.
In your role, what you're doing, and this isn't meant to be a trap question, but are you allowed to show up authentically Black?
That is the only thing that we do. There's nothing else. I mean, and that's, I think, the freedom of being an entrepreneur. We've had meetings where that's gone well. We've had meetings where that has not gone well. But that's okay because we exist to empower Black and marginalized communities. That's the objective. And I imagine at some point the term Black and being Black Onyx management is going to be an issue, and folks are going to be like, "Oh, you should be more multicultural or whatever." It is what it is.
I do have one a tough question for you last. Before we do that, I got a series of hot seat questions.
Got it.
As we're wrapping up.
Rapid
fire, just kind of what your
quick
thoughts are. Here we go. So simple ones though, but favorite place to vacation?
I don't do vacations. I really don't.
What?
It's not something that it's not something that I've really done.
Any place you desire to go?
Paris.
Okay. Best city you've ever been to? Or coolest?
I like Toronto.
Favorite restaurant?
Oh man. Okay, so Country Kitchen, and then the Hickory Barbecue Tips. I'm spacing on his name, but Country Kitchen is the first one. So.
Favorite type of food?
Soul food.
What about a brand that you love?
Cole Haan.
All right. Favorite sports team?
Not really into sports. Really, I'm in a sports city and I'm not really into sports.
No sports team? Like anybody follow, look at, watch it?
Nah.
It's a first on this show.
Yeah, I'm not really a sports person. Yeah.
Favorite college?
Morehouse. Well, I want my son to go to Morehouse. I want to go to Morehouse. I want to go to Howard Law School at some point, but yeah, went to IU though.
We'll accept that.
Okay.
TV show?
I've been watching Queen Sugar. I'm sorry, it's about to end. So now, I'm waiting for Succession. I'm excited about that show coming back.
One of your top favorite movies?
Malcolm X.
Favorite music genre?
Not really a music person either. I read, man.
Okay. Favorite book?
Is God a White Racist? It makes you think. You got to sit back and think about just how everything's structured. It is what's called an exegesis of theology. And it informed my favorite philosopher, who is Lewis Gordon.
Favorite podcast?
This one.
What a great answer. I love that. Last hot seat question is a charity that you love to support.
Black grassroots organizations. So that's something that Black Onyx Management is committed to. That's actually our policy. That's we support Black grassroots organizations. So my favorite ones, Urban League, IBE, those are ones that I know I'll be donating to consistently.
There's going to come a day that all of us have to succumb to, that there's two numbers on the other side of your dash. Mm-hmm. And when that happens, like, what do you want them to say about Marshawn?
He fought for Black people. He fought for Black people.
I'm just going to leave that right there.
Yeah.
It's so powerful.
Yeah.
And I was even caught just thinking, he fought for Black people.
Yeah. Everyone matters. But when I look at the data, when I look at my own experiences, my community created me, sustained me. They've affirmed me over and over again. They support me now in this endeavor. They support me when they are helping me. They support me when they challenge me. And so why wouldn't I fight for them?
Marshawn, my man, I appreciate you coming on the show. Let's give him the clip to let him give the official, it's a wrap.
Marshawn Wolley, it's a wrap.